A Philadelphia judge has ordered that the engineer on Amtrak 188 be criminally charged in the 2015 crash that killed 8 people and injured about 200. The matter has been referred to the Office of Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro, which announced it was carefully reviewing the request. Earlier this week, the Office of Philadelphia District Attorney Seth Williams announced that it would not charge Brandon Bostian, the train's engineer, despite saying that Bostian was operating the train at an unsafe speed. The order states that Bostian should be charged with involuntary manslaughter and reckless endangerment. In a statement, Williams' office confirmed the order and its rationale in sending it to Harrisburg. According to the Enquirer, the court order was issued following a hearing in which attorneys representing victims of the crash demanded the criminal case be reopened. Attorneys asked the Office of the District Attorney to accept a criminal complaint filed by the husband and father of Rachel Jacobs, a Philadelphia mother killed in the crash. The Enquirer also reported that while it is uncommon for a judge to overrule the DA's office, it isn't unprecedented. Last year, the NTSB released its investigation into the crash and ruled Bostian was at fault, though he was not found to be sleepy, operating his cell phone or under the influence of any drugs or alcohol. The federal organization focused on a radio conversation between Bostian, a dispatcher, and a SEPTA regional rail engineer who claimed rocks were being thrown at his car around Frankfurt, where Bostian's train was traveling. Amtrak 188 sped up to 106 miles per hour around the curve. This portion of track was not equipped with positive train control or even a less technologically advanced piece of equipment that could have prevented the train from traveling at such a speed. Experts questioned whether Williams or any district attorney would even know how to prosecute him. By my guess, nobody remotely associated with the local office of a district attorney has ever investigated a similar derailment. Bob Potoff, a nationally known train accident lawyer, told Billy Pennsylvania they have to be 100% dependent on federal authorities who are deeply embedded with the railroad industry. Despite that, Bostian's own comments raised eyebrows following the crash. While he made few public statements, he was interviewed at least twice by the National Transportation Safety Board as a part of its investigation into the deadly crash. And as part of those interviews, his story changed. In his first interview with investigators the week the crash occurred, Bostian told the NTSB he had little memory of the night of the crash when investigators said the train, bound for New York, sped around a curve at the Frankfurt junction, and then derailed. But in a follow-up interview with NTSB investigators 6 months later, Bostian, who suffered a head injury during the crash, seemed to have remembered more steps he took moments before the train derailed. "I couldn't say with certainty that my memory is accurate," he told investigators in November. "There are a couple of prominent scenes in my head that have come back to me since we last spoke." The engineer, in his second interview with investigators, said he was actually operating the train 10 miles per hour slower than what was the posted speed limit, and he remembers pushing the throttle forward to get closer to the speed limit. In his first interview though, Bostian didn't mention going 10 miles per hour slower than the posted speed limit. In the week after the crash, investigators with the NTSB said the train was traveling at more than 100 miles per hour when it derailed. In his first interview with investigators, Bostian admitted he didn't make a habit out of checking the posted speed limits along his northeast corridor routes because they were often wrong. "In my work habits," he said, "I don't really look for the speed restriction signs because a lot of times they either missing or they the wrong train type or they wrong." The Amtrak engineer in the 2015 derailment in Philadelphia that killed 8 people and injured more than 200 was charged Friday with a felony count of causing or risking a catastrophe and multiple counts of misdemeanor involuntary manslaughter. The second-degree felony charge that Brandon Bostian faces carries a punishment of up to 10 years in prison. It alleges he was reckless in the operation of the train. He also is charged with 8 counts on involuntary manslaughter, a first-degree misdemeanor, and numerous charges of reckless endangerment, a second-degree misdemeanor, Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro said Friday. "I commend our outstanding team in the Office of the Attorney General, which worked diligently and thoughtfully around the clock to enable us to be in this position to pursue justice on behalf of the victims of this deadly crash," Shapiro said. On Tuesday, the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office had completed its investigation into the derailment at the Frankfort Junction on May 12, 2015, finding that while evidence indicated that the derailment was caused by Bostien operating the train far in excess of the speed limit, the evidence did not rise to the level of pressing charges against him because there was no evidence he acted with criminal intent or criminal knowledge. While local prosecutors declined to press charges, Pennsylvania law allows for private criminal complaints to be filed. On Thursday, Attorney Thomas R. Klein filed a private complaint on behalf of John Jacobs, father of Rachel Jacobs, who died in the crash. Judge Marcia Nayfield of Philadelphia Municipal Court issued an order saying Bostien could be charged with involuntary manslaughter and reckless endangerment. Prosecutors then sent the case to the Attorney General, who added the felony charge. Klein and attorney Robert Mungaluzzi represent 32 victims in ongoing litigation against Amtrak, which has declined to comment. The 2016 National Transportation Safety Board investigation into the derailment concluded that prior to the crash Bostien was distracted by radio conversations between other trains and dispatchers about other trains being hit with projectiles. NTSB investigators say they found no evidence the Amtrak engineer was using alcohol, drugs or a cell phone. The ride from the train station in Philadelphia to the site of the derailment was 11 minutes. Investigators say 7 to 9 of those minutes the engineer was listening to and participating in the radio conversations regarding other trains being hit with a projectile. When NTSB investigators interviewed him, the discussion of trains being hit by a projectile was one of the few details the engineer remembered clearly. The Amtrak passenger train was traveling from Washington to New York City when 7 of its cars and its engine jumped the rails. The train's data record revealed it was traveling at 106 miles per hour around a sharp curve that had a speed limit of 50 miles per hour. Of the 238 passengers, 8 were killed: Laura Finnemore, James Gaines, Abid Gilani, Robert Gildersleeve, Derek Griffith, Rachel Jacobs, Giuseppe Perez, and Justin Zemza, who were the victims of the Amtrak derailment. The section of track where the train derailed was not equipped with safety equipment called automatic train control. The automated system notifies an engineer if the train is speeding and applies the brakes automatically if the engineer does not respond. The NTSB has said had that equipment been installed the accident would not have happened. Amtrak has since installed that speed control along the section of track where the derailment occurred. Pennsylvania has filed criminal charges against the driver of an Amtrak train which derailed in 2015 in Philadelphia. 8 people died and more than 200 were injured in the crash. Brandon Bostien has been charged with involuntary manslaughter, causing or risking a catastrophe, and numerous counts of reckless endangerment, prosecutors said. The move comes days after prosecutors in the city of Philadelphia said they would not pursue charges. The district attorney's office said that while the evidence suggested the derailment was caused by excessive speed, it found no evidence of criminal intent. But at state level, the Pennsylvania Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, said the scope of his charges go beyond what was considered in the Philadelphia case. Mr. Shapiro said his team would pursue justice on behalf of the victims of this deadly crash. Amtrak Train 188 was on its way from Washington to New York on the 12th of May 2015 when it came off the track in the city of Philadelphia. Investigators found that the train was traveling at 106 miles per hour, 170 kilometers per hour, along a curve, more than double the speed limit for that section of the line. In the immediate aftermath of the incident, investigators said Mr. Bostien was extremely cooperative but could not remember details of what had happened. but a report a year later by the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, found that a loss situational awareness by the train's driver caused the fatal derailment. The report said Mr. Bostian was distracted by radio communications about another train driver whose train had been hit by an object. After he lost situational awareness as to where his train was located in relation to the curve, the NTSB said, Mr. Bostian actually accelerated the train to past 100 miles per hour, consistent with the belief that his train had already passed the curve into an area of relatively straight track. In its report, the NTSB said that a safety system called Positive Train Control, which it first recommended implementation of in 1970, would have prevented the crash.